please put your hands together. Welcome to the stage, Elizabeth Stark and BTC Sessions. Take it away.
All right. I feel so far from you. Should we snuggle a little bit more? Yeah, we're doing it. Okay. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this chat. We're gonna dive right into it and kind of get started.
By the way, can I just say that a lightning hairstyle shows true passion and dedication, which is part of what I love about the Bitcoin community?
It's absolutely the impetus for the hair. Yes. Well, we're here to chat lightning. There's a lot to get to. We have limited time, so. Let's start by talking about the importance of open protocols where anybody can use and build upon it. Do you want to kind of touch on why you're so passionate about that and how that relates to Lightning?
Yeah, so that actually is part of what brought me to Bitcoin in the first place. I've always been passionate about the open internet, open source technology, open protocols, and I cannot state the importance of open interoperable technologies and protocols, right? So when I first learned about Bitcoin, my initial reaction was, oh, open source money. Of course, then I thought, well, will anybody ever use this? And turns out people did, and that's part of what got me so excited about it. But the fact that it was open and available to anybody in the world and for anybody to build on is so critical. So with the Lightning protocol, and folks may be familiar, Lightning is an open interoperable protocol. Anybody can build upon it. Anybody can build a Lightning implementation. We have 4 or 5, a variety of people are building Lightning implementations. And there's even what is called the Bolt specification. We just had a meeting of developers in Japan that got together to discuss various protocol and spec-related issues. And the idea is that anybody that wants to come along can build to the specification and interoperate with the other Lightning implementations. Now, why is this so important? Well, I actually used to teach about the internet and the evolution of the internet. And what we saw in the early days was we had a number of what we call walled garden internet services. If anybody knows of something like Prodigy or CompuServe, now I'm totally dating myself, AOL in my country in the US, they actually didn't interoperate. And people used them, but then you couldn't talk to people in the other services, right? So what came along but the World Wide Web? Tim Berners-Lee created it in the early 90s, and this was an open protocol that anybody could build upon. Anybody could create a website. And lo and behold, what happened? The adoption came to the open protocol. People built, the web that we know today came from the early creators of this protocol, and it was the interoperability. And it was the fact that anybody could build upon it, and the network effects that came along with it that enabled the web to win out against these walled gardens. So the lesson that I have taken away from this in terms of building open protocols for Bitcoin is it's incredibly important that we continue to build open interoperable protocols where anybody can build an implementation, anybody can build on top of it, and not have a walled garden scenario. And by the way, one thing we've seen in a number of other crypto communities is we have what we call tokenized walled gardens. And the idea is, well, there's a disincentive for these protocols to talk to each other because they have their own token, and therefore they actually don't want to interoperate. And that's not the Bitcoin way, as we know. The Bitcoin way is to build open source tech where anybody can use it and anybody can build on top of it. So with Lightning, that's part of what, as a community, we have built and are continuing to build to ensure that we have this open interoperable protocol, because at the end of the day, our goal is to have the Internet of Money implemented on top of Bitcoin as layer 2, like the web was in the early 90s.
So can we start referring to these other protocols as the AOL of money? Perhaps. I think that's a Comcast.
I'll take it.
Yeah, the Comcast of money. So I want to chat a little bit about kind of the Lightning that we know and see now. I'm going out and I'm able to make payments and buy my kids some Bitcoin stuffies while I'm here and all of that, and that's what we're experiencing as Lightning now. But there's some new things on the horizon for Lightning, and I want to hear about your vision for the future of Lightning as a potentially multi-asset protocol.
Yeah, so today, for those that I'm sure many in the room have interacted with Lightning and the protocol and used it, the protocol enables instant high volume transactions with low fees using Bitcoin, right? And people are able to move their Bitcoin into what we call Lightning channels. Importantly, it is trustless. And I would caution people, because you hear of many new protocols now where you have to trust an individual. We have this concept called unilateral exit, the idea that you don't have to trust anybody and you can always get your funds back on the blockchain. Lightning embodies this, right? So this is at the core of the protocol. You don't have to trust your counterparty. You just rely on the security of the Bitcoin base layer in order to transact. So that's key. So today we have, many people globally. Emerging markets have been huge. I like to say there are two major classes of use cases that we see today for Lightning: access for those that previously did not have it, and enabling new use cases, making sure that those use cases can happen that were not previously possible. So we've seen this entire ecosystem grow around Bitcoin and Lightning, which has been incredible. But we at Lightning Labs have had this vision that, what if Bitcoin can become this global routing, both blockchain and layer one, but also global routing asset? And if we can bring other assets onto Lightning and have Bitcoin underlie those transactions. So we've had a variety of proposals within the community throughout the years involving assets on Bitcoin, including Lightning. And we at Lightning Labs have been working on a protocol called Taproot Assets, using the Taproot upgrade that happened in 2021 to Bitcoin. And importantly, this protocol does not clog up the blockchain. It is designed to be efficient using the witness aspect of the Taproot upgrade to Bitcoin, so you don't have to store all the data on chain, because we've seen in recent times where there were other asset protocols where you couldn't transact on chain because the fees became so high. So this is designed to be efficient and scalable. And we at Lightning Labs a year ago shipped the first alpha mainnet for on-chain Taproot assets, and then just in late July of this year, we shipped the first ever multi-asset Lightning protocol where you can route on Lightning with other assets. And importantly, you can route through Bitcoin, and this is part of the vision. We believe that Bitcoin should be, thinking about interoperability, the asset that underlies all sorts of other transactions globally, including fiat transactions. And really, at the end of the day, it all comes back to Bitcoin, and we'll get to that later in terms of what people are building and how there's been this return to Bitcoin, which we always knew was going to happen. But when it comes to multi-asset Lightning, we've actually seen, since the release of Taproot Assets on Lightning, we now today have 3 bridge stablecoins of USDT on Lightning from other chains. And the idea is, well, there are many users out there that want to use stablecoins for a variety of reasons. They might have hyperinflationary environments. They might be losing their savings. They want access to the dollar for international trade, for transacting, so on and so forth. And the way that I consider these people is that they are Bitcoiners in the making. They're pre-coiners, new coiners, however you want to frame it. But they actually are going to want Bitcoin. So how do we best onboard them to Bitcoin? Well, we get them using, say, a stablecoin on Lightning, using the Bitcoin base layer and then Lightning on layer 2. And then they start to learn a little bit more about Bitcoin. Okay, maybe the USD they have is inflating and is not worth as much as it used to be. And what is this Bitcoin thing? And I see that as a major onboarding mechanism to get far more people onto Bitcoin. And we know today there's a massive demand for stablecoins. We've seen the numbers globally. It's substantial. And we already have, in the early days, these bridge stablecoins. And then the next step, of course, is to get native stablecoins issued both on the Bitcoin base layer and on Lightning. And one other important point is, so a number of people, including you, run Lightning nodes. And you've done these awesome videos and tutorials, and we've been a huge fan of your work, so thank you. People that are running Lightning nodes, and there have been many community members, people like the plebnet and so on that are doing so, can run a Lightning node with Bitcoin, and they don't even have to know about the existence of these assets. Because the way the assets work is you route through Bitcoin. So basically, people that are running these nodes can continually route Bitcoin transactions that will ultimately be routing stablecoins, but it's only at the edges. And this is taking from the principles of the internet, where you keep complexity at the edges and you keep the middle of the network simple. And so what we're going to see is the Bitcoin liquidity on Lightning will route all sorts of stablecoins and assets. They're already doing so today. They'll continue to do so. And they won't even know about the existence of the assets. And that's just going to bring more volume to Bitcoin node runners and also more demand for Bitcoin liquidity on Lightning. So that gets to the interoperability angle because people are just going to be able to route all the world's currencies through Bitcoin on Lightning.
Side note, if you make a tutorial on how to do a Lightning node, don't encourage hundreds of people to open channels to you, because then anytime you open an outbound channel, it will drain immediately.
You're very popular. What can you say?
I had to nuke that node. So, but a lot of people learned. That's okay. I want to shift a little bit and chat a little bit about some of these other open protocols that are beginning to come up, again, building atop Bitcoin in various ways. Before linking back to how Lightning will relate, maybe I'll cue you up and say, what are some of the ones that you're keeping an eye on, that you're curious or excited about, and a little bit about what some of the value add and trade-offs perhaps that these systems are offering?
Yeah, so one thing we've seen even since last year at Plan B, for those that were here, was a huge, I'd say, movement of developers and development toward Bitcoin. And as somebody that has been involved in this community for a long time, it makes perfect sense to me, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin has the most liquidity. Bitcoin, has the most hash power backing it up. It is the most secure blockchain. It has the most recognition globally. It has the most users globally. So it's no surprise to me that people want to build on Bitcoin. And we've seen just a lot of momentum across the developer community around building on Bitcoin. We've also seen some interesting developments. People may be familiar with BitVM, enabling computation on Bitcoin and a degree of Turing completeness validated on the chain. We've seen people building zero-knowledge proof technology. We've seen new off-chain solutions along the lines of Arc. We've seen eCash, Cashew, and Fediments as examples of those. And the way that I think about it is, I want more developers building on Bitcoin. I want the developer, creativity, just generally the ideas coming to Bitcoin, and that has very much happened lately. Now, there have also been some things that one should not trust that are, a multi-sig, and who knows who controls it, and you should not put your funds in there. So certainly, as the community, we need to know what we're looking at. But in terms of these new evolving technologies, I see them as a really positive sign for the Bitcoin developer community, because we're seeing, new ideas come into play. We're seeing lots of excitement, developer discussion. We're seeing new teams coming to build on Bitcoin and recognize the value of Bitcoin. So with some of these off-chain protocols, we also see a push toward programmability that we traditionally have not had on the Bitcoin chain itself. And the way that I look at it is, Satoshi intentionally did not make Bitcoin Turing complete on the base layer, and I believe that was the correct choice, because on the whole, we prioritize security as a community, right? If other chains are about, moving fast and literally breaking things, and things often do break, that is not the Bitcoin way. I believe that the philosophy, has been and should continue to be around building cautiously and ensuring the base layer is secure. And that's what we have done as a community. But we have the ability at higher layers to have more experimentation. So for people that want to build greater programmability, for example, my friends building the Spider chain as well, we're able to do so at the higher layer. Now, where does Lightning fit into this, right? Yes. We at Lightning Labs have been in touch with all these developers that are building these exciting new technologies. Now, of course, we'll see which ones end up getting the user base and which ones do not, because at the end of the day, I'm incredibly passionate about solving real problems for real people or even machines at the end of the day. And I think the protocols that prioritize interoperability and ensuring that users can transact, both with Lightning and then on-chain Bitcoin and Bitcoin native assets are going to succeed, as opposed to those that try to build a walled garden where users are effectively, locked in, or it's harder to get out. I also think the degree of trust is incredibly important. We don't want a scenario where users can get rug pulled or their funds can just be lost, even if unintentionally, right? So we want to ensure that we're building trustless, secure technology at the end of the day. But when it comes to Lightning, what we're seeing, in terms of Fediments, Cashew, Arc, a number of other of these technologies, is they're using Lightning as the interoperability layer, getting back to that same theme, because people need to be able to talk to each other. And if somebody is going to, say, transact on a Fediment, and then they want to send out, say, to another app or something that accepts Bitcoin, they're going to do so with Lightning. So the way that we see it, all of these layers lead to Lightning because they're all integrating this open network that anyone can build upon. And Lightning then becomes the gateway, or the glue, as we say, connecting all these new technologies that are evolving. And again, I will stress the importance of network effects as well. Shout out to my friend Lynn Alden, who, if you have not read her article on network effects, is one of my favorites. My team sends it out to people whenever I mention it. Absolute classic. And it really does matter. Bitcoin has that network effect, and with Lightning, we are building that network effect as well. And the more users that join the network, if you think of something that's called Metcalfe's law, the value of the network grows exponentially with the more users that join it. And the more users we onboard with these new off-chain projects and new open protocols, the more users we will bring to both Bitcoin and Lightning because they'll be transacting between them.
This is one of my favorite aspects of I guess my understanding of Lightning over time is the fact that it has, you have all these different protocols that are operating that are kind of speaking different languages, but Lightning is stepping in as the translator between all of them, so they just understand each other. And just for practical, in terms of end user, what does it look like for you guys? Well, it looks like, somebody's got a Cashew wallet, somebody's got a Fediment wallet, somebody's got their own Lightning wallet, and somebody's got an Arc wallet, and you're all able to seamlessly send to each other because Lightning is stringing those protocols together to just make them work and interoperate in various ways. And
I believe Roy from Breeze called Lightning the lingua franca of Bitcoin, and I like that a lot. So shout out to Roy.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to shift a little bit into another topic that I think we're both very passionate about. I've been doing some work with the Human Rights Foundation as of late. We were just discussing this before coming up, that you're, again, passionate in this realm. You've been speaking with the lovely Anna Chekovich recently from the Navalny Foundation, or the Anti-Corruption Foundation. And she's doing a lot of important work in talking to you guys about how to best serve people that are human rights defenders, political dissidents, that are in the most dire straits and just need this stuff to work. Side note, if you want to come here on a talk, 5 o'clock at the peer-to-peer stage, she's fantastic. We're going to be chatting together. But I want you to talk about what you've heard, what feedback you've gotten, and how we can ensure that these tools are being built and geared towards those that need them most. So maybe you can speak to that a bit.
Yeah, well, first of all, part of why I was so excited to have this chat was due to your work with the Human Rights Foundation, so thank you for that. This is one of the topics that is incredibly near and dear to my heart, and something that I absolutely love about our community in Bitcoin. Shout out to the Human Rights Foundation and the Oslo Freedom Forum, where you see hundreds of Bitcoiners traveling from around the world, every corner of the world, to come and talk to human rights activists and people that are fighting for democracy. And it turns out, if a repressive regime wants to go after you, well, how do they do so? They use the financial angle, because if you're not able to access, say, your bank account or money, that makes it incredibly hard to fight for freedom and fight against the government. So Bitcoin is a critical aspect, and I've heard amazing stories from Anna. We've talked to her on our team at Lightning Labs. Our team gets incredibly fired up when they hear about these use cases, because the way that I think about it, we as Bitcoiners, we're not trading meme coins or doing DeFi degen stuff. I mean, maybe some people are, but what we really care about is financial freedom. Bitcoin embodies financial freedom, and we are a global movement, right? If you go anywhere around the world, you meet somebody who's a Bitcoiner, and they're a part of this community and part of this movement. And one key element of this is the financial freedom aspect. So when it comes to human rights defenders and people fighting for this globally, it is essential that we keep this protocol, open, as it very much is, accessible as it is. And it's also critical that we improve the user experience, because we know that, in the early days, for example, people that were using Lightning had to manage channels and know about things like liquidity. And we have evolved that substantially. And shout out to many of the developers here who are working on making that as easy as possible to have, say, non-custodial Lightning usage. Again, I know Roy from Breeze, a huge advocate of this. Thank you. We have a number of other people in the community working on this. Moon as another great example, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to human rights defenders, we want to ensure that they're able to custody their own funds, transact globally. The instant nature of Lightning is also critical, and that they have the user experience that's going to enable them to use Bitcoin as the freedom asset that it is. And actually, I know you do a lot of work with human rights defenders, and I'd love to just quickly hear from you. What are they telling you that they need most?
So there's a number of things. Again, a lot of people are coming into this from their perspective of they're brand new, but they've perhaps had bank accounts shut, or that some of it is just the basics of how do I even use this? How do I? Yes, of course. How do I set up a wallet, and what do I need to do to back this up? Where does my money go? But also a little bit of it is on the ground. Okay, great, I can get money into the country. What happens when it gets there? And there's just basic stuff like, what do I do with the Bitcoin when it's here? So there's a lot, and the interesting part about it right now is as the landscape changes, the way that we teach has to change too, because somebody's first entry into Bitcoin used to be, here's an on-chain wallet, you're going to back it up with your seed phrase, off you go. And then, oh, by the way, there's also a thing on top called Lightning that's quicker and cheaper to use. But now people's entry points are often coming from the transactional side. How do I do my first transaction? And that's going to be different. And then you kind of work your way down the self-sovereignty stack to become as self-sovereign as possible. So it's a tricky thing to navigate as... we're witnessing the birth of a global currency, and we're watching it be built from the ground up. And so we started teaching from the base layer, and then we've had to go, oh, no, wait, there's a new thing to learn. Oh, no, wait, there's a new thing to learn. And eventually, people's entry points will start up here, and then they'll work their way down sovereignty, I think.
Well, and part of what's so critical about interacting with this community is if you think about who needs these technologies the most, right? They're a quintessential example of this, and many of them are not super technical. They're not coders, and they're not sitting and necessarily, diving deep into the Bitcoin technology, although maybe some are evolving. And I see our goal as a community to ensure that they have access to this technology and we can build solutions that meet their needs. And one thing I love to say to the team at Lightning Labs, and they've heard me say this so many times, is, who needs this and why? And that's something where I believe we in the Bitcoin community are really thinking a lot about this and building for that, where you see a lot of other, crypto protocols out there, and it's kind of like a buzzword salad of things where you're like, who actually needs this? So when it comes to people, in hyperinflationary environments with capital controls where governments are repressing them and, trying to shut down their access to financial freedom, the role of Bitcoin and Lightning cannot be overstated in enabling just this broader access. And again, huge fan of the work you guys are doing, but highly suggest people check out the Human Rights Foundation and everything they have done to onboard activists and show them how this technology can enable greater freedom.
Yeah, and it's going in the right direction too. I think things are becoming a lot easier to be able to start somebody off in a wallet, and it gives them a pathway to be as self-sovereign and have control of their own funds as they need to be. And while it was a difficult question, the past year or so, how is somebody going to attack that initial onboarding? It's becoming easier to make recommendations and lead people down a path that will both educate them and keep them safe. Would you echo that?
I've seen incredible progress with this community. And the way that I think about it, Bitcoin is freedom money. It's a movement that is growing and will continue to grow. And sometimes I laugh about things like, the number of times that Bitcoin was proclaimed dead, right? There's this cite Bitcoin obituaries, or this idea that there was the flippening where Ethereum was going to become more valuable than Bitcoin. Well, how's that doing right now? But at the end of the day, we see that Bitcoin has a network effect, Bitcoin has a user base, Bitcoin has a developer community. And it's funny because people think they're late today, right? 2024. It's still really early in terms of the evolution of this protocol and the technology. And over the next couple of years, I see so much coming down the line, both with new technologies, new protocols, AI, something that we're working on in terms of Lightning being the protocol for AI transactions, machines being able to transact with Bitcoin. And we're really only at the beginning, so stay tuned because there's so much more in store.
Well, that's our time. Let's have a huge round of applause for
Thank you.
Elizabeth Stark.